That seat isn't for you. The words cut through the private airport lounge like a slap. The millionaire woman didn't even look up at first, until the grease-stained mechanic slowly lifted his eyes and said calmly, "Because that seat belongs to the men whose company you stole, and whose life you destroyed." The room fell silent. And in that moment, everything she thought she knew about power, wealth, and control began to crumble. Vivian Cole had built her empire with sharp heels, sharper words, and absolutely no mercy. At 42, she was one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the aviation industry. Her private jets dominated runways across the country, her face smiled confidently from magazine covers, and her name carried the kind of authority that made people straighten their backs when they heard it. That morning, Vivian arrived at the private hangar furious. Her jet, custom-built, worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime, had a minor technical delay. Minor. Yet to her, it was an unforgivable inconvenience. She stormed through the hangar, her designer coat brushing past workers who instinctively stepped aside. Then she saw him. A mechanic sat in the leather lounge seat near the jet, sipping coffee. His uniform was old, stained with oil, sleeves rolled up. He looked tired. Ordinary. Vivian stopped. "That seat isn't for you," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to slice steel. The mechanic didn't move. She stepped closer. "Do you know how much that chair costs? People like you don't sit there." Slowly, the man stood. He was taller than she expected. Older, too. His face was calm, too calm. "I know exactly how much it costs," he said quietly. Vivian scoffed. "Then you'll know better next time." She turned away, already dialing her assistant, when his next words froze her steps. "You still don't recognize me," he said. Something in his tone made her chest tighten. She turned back. The mechanic wiped his hands with a rag and looked straight at her. 5 years ago. Boardroom 14. You sat at the head of the table and promised me a partnership. Her breath caught. Impossible. That's not possible, she said quickly. I've never. You let them vote me out, he continued. Then you used my designs. My patents. My company. Memories slammed into her like a sudden storm. Ethan Hale. The co-founder she had crushed. He was supposed to be finished. Bankrupt. Forgotten. And now he stood in front of her wearing a mechanic's uniform. The hangar felt smaller. Colder. You ruined my life, he said calmly. And today, I came to watch what happens when truth finally lands. Vivian laughed nervously. You think this is some dramatic moment? You're a mechanic. I'm a billionaire. Ethan looked past her, toward the jet. No, he said softly. You were. Minutes later, officials arrived. Auditors. Lawyers. Executives Vivian didn't recognize. Her assistant tried to explain. Her voice shook. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Ethan stood quietly as documents were handed out. Forgery. Fraud. Intellectual theft. Vivian's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Each one carried her signature. Each one tied directly to Ethan's original company, proof she had buried through bribes and threats. You planned this, she whispered. Ethan shook his head. No. I waited. He told her how he lost everything. His home. His reputation. Friends who vanished the moment the money did. How he took work anywhere he could, cleaning hangars, fixing engines, learning from the ground up. And while you were flying above the clouds, he said, I was rebuilding from the floor. Her empire began collapsing in real time. Accounts frozen. Shares suspended. Contracts terminated. The same executives who once bowed to her now avoided her eyes. Vivian sank into the very seat she had forbidden him from using. I made you nothing, she whispered bitterly. Ethan shook his head again. You made me patient. He leaned closer, his voice firm but not cruel. You taught me what power without integrity becomes. Security escorted her out of the hangar. No cameras. No applause. Just silence. Months later, Ethan stood in the same hangar, but this time, his name was etched onto the glass doors. His company had relaunched, ethically, transparently. Workers respected him. Engines roared again under his guidance. One afternoon, a woman stood outside the gate. Vivian. No heels. No arrogance. Just tired eyes. I don't want my old life back, she said quietly. I just want a chance to do something right. Ethan studied her for a long moment. Then he handed her a uniform. Everyone starts somewhere, he said. And for the first time in her life, Vivian nodded, not as a boss, not as a billionaire, but as a human being learning humility.